Welcome to the Danish Institute for Human Rights' Human Rights Impact Assessment Guidance and Toolbox. This is currently one of the most comprehensive guides out there on how to do human rights impact assessment of business activities. It has been developed through the practice and input of many impact assessment practitioners from around the world. A human rights impact assessment, or HRIA in short, are one emerging way in which businesses can assess their impacts on human rights. So this might be on rights holders such as workers or community members. They look at both the actual as well as the potential impacts that businesses might have, as well as develop mitigation measures of how these might be addressed. Importantly, a human rights impact assessment also follows a human rights-based approach, which places particular emphasis on principles like participation, transparency, and involvement of rights holders in the process. According to the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, businesses are supposed to respect human rights, including through the process of human rights due diligence. This is an ongoing process that should look at the potential and actual impacts that a business might have on human rights. A human rights impact assessment is one methodology that businesses can use to meet this responsibility by looking, for instance, at human rights impacts in the context of a particular site, in a supply chain, or even in a whole sector. The toolbox provides guidance and tools for those who are involved in human rights impact assessments. So this might be human rights impact assessment practitioners, companies commissioning such assessments, or those reviewing or monitoring assessments. It might also be useful for financial institutions that set specific requirements of businesses. Other actors, for instance, national human rights institutions or civil society, might also be interested in the toolbox, as well as other actors that are interested in responsible business conduct. If you are new to human rights impact assessment, or are wondering about how HRIAs are different from other types of impact assessments, like social or environmental impact assessments, you can find more information in the Welcome and Introduction section of the toolbox. This section builds foundational knowledge of impact assessment and international human rights standards. The toolbox follows the 5 steps of a HRIA process: planning and scoping, data collection and baseline development, analyzing impacts, impact mitigation and management, and reporting and evaluation. The question of how to engage key stakeholders is of key importance in all 5 phases, which is why stakeholder engagement has a dedicated section in addition to information under each phase. In the planning and scoping phase, the HRIA team gathers information about the business project, the local human rights context, and stakeholders to engage with throughout the process. In the data collection and baseline development phase, the HRIA team goes into the field to conduct research on human rights enjoyment of workers, local communities, and other relevant stakeholders. In the analysis phase, the HRIA team assesses the severity of human rights impacts, as well as how the business relates to those impacts. In the impact mitigation and management phase, the business, HRIA team, and stakeholders come together to create a plan for preventing and addressing human rights impacts. The business also establishes mechanisms for monitoring human rights, responding to complaints, and providing remedy to affected individuals and groups. In the final phase, the business and HRIA team report on their findings. Each phase contains an overview of the key points in text and video format. All phases feature corresponding practitioner supplements, like editable documents with sample interview questions, examples, checklists, and other practical tools for conducting a HRIA. The in-depth guidance provided for each phase is complemented by a case study, where practitioners share experiences and challenges they encountered and how they address them. You can access and download the full text of the toolbox and all practitioner supplements on our website, humanrights.dk/tools.